Maybe you'll meet someone tonight. Translation: maybe some poor slob will marry you. My stepmonster had, from day one, related to me in only one way: as a rival for her new husband's affections. Worse, she never hesitated to play the depression card to get out of something that was important to me. This ceased bothering me about a week after I met her, so I suppose it was just as well. I went into the kitchen to feed my cat, and that's when I noticed she'd run away again. Always looking for adventure, my Giselle, although it's more like I'm her Betsy. I looked at the clock. My, not even noon. Time to do laundry and gouge out my eyes, and the day would be complete. Happy birthday to me. As it turned out, we had a freak April snowstorm, and my party was postponed. Just as well. I didn't feel like going out, putting on a happy face and drinking too many daiquiris. The Mall of America is a terrific place, but I've got to be in the mood for overpriced retail merchandise, rowdy weekend crowds, and $6 drinks. Nick called around 8 p.m., and that was my day's sole bright spot. Nick Barry was a superfine detective who worked out of St. Paul. I'd been attacked a couple of months before, and... Okay, well, attacked is putting it mildly. Like using the word unfortunate to describe World War II. I don't like to talk about it, to think about it. But what happened was, a bunch of creeps jumped me as I was leaving Khan's Mongolian barbecue. All you can eat for $11.95, including salad, dessert, and free refills. Quite the bargain if you don't mind your clothes reeking of garlic for hours. I have no idea what my attackers wanted. They didn't take my purse, or try to rape me, or even babble about government conspiracies. They came out of nowhere. Literally. 1 minute, I was yawning and fumbling for my keys. The next, I was surrounded. They clawed and bit at me like a bunch of rabid squirrels, while I fended them off with the toes of my Manolo Blahniks and screamed for help as loud as I could. So loud, I couldn't speak above a whisper for 3 days. They stank. Worse than my kitchen that time I went to the Cape for 2 weeks and forgot to empty my garbage before I left. They all had long hair and funny-colored eyes, and they never talked to me. Help didn't come, but the bad guys ran away. Maybe they were rattled by my voice. When I scream, dogs howl. Or maybe they didn't like the way I stank of garlic. Whatever the reason, they ran away. Skittered away, actually. While I leaned against my car, concentrating on not passing out, I glanced back, and it looked like a few of them were on all fours. I struggled mightily not to yark up my buffet, ginger tea and sesame bread. No way was I pissing away that $11.95, and then called 911 on my cell phone. Detective Nick was assigned to the case, and he interviewed me in the hospital while they were disinfecting the bite marks. All 15 of them. The intern who took care of me smelled like cilantro and kept humming the theme from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Off-key. This was actually more annoying than the sting of the antiseptic. That was last fall. Since then, more and more people, they didn't discriminate between women and men, were being attacked. The last 2 had turned up dead. So yeah, I was freaked out by what happened, and I'd sworn off cons until the bad guys were caught. But mostly, I was grateful it hadn't been worse. Anyway, Detective Nick called, and we chatted, and long story short, I promised to come in to look through the big book of bad guys one more time. And I would. For myself, to feel empowered, but mostly to see Nick, who is exactly my height, 6 feet, with dark blonde hair cut regulation short, light blue eyes, a swimmer's build, and dimples. He looked like an escapee from a Mr. Hardbody calendar. "I've broken the law, officer. Take me in." Making Nick my eye candy would be the closest I'd gotten to getting laid in... What year was it? Not that I'm a prude. I'm just picky. Really, really picky. I treat myself to the nicest, most expensive shoes I can get my hands on, which isn't easy on a secretary's budget, and never mind all the money my dad keeps trying to throw at me. If I used his money, they wouldn't be my shoes. They'd be his. Anyway, I save up for months to buy the dumb things, and they only have to go on my feet. Yep, that's me in a nutshell. Elizabeth Taylor. Don't start, I've heard 'em all. Single, dead-end job. Well, not anymore. Lives with her cat. And I'm so dull, the fucking cat runs away about 3 times a month just to get a little excitement. And speaking of the cat, was that her telltale meow from the street? Well, super. Giselle hated the snow. She had probably been looking for a little spring lovin' and got caught in the storm. Now she was outside waiting for rescue. And when I did rescue her, she'd be horribly affronted and wouldn't make eye contact for the rest of the week. I slipped into my boots and headed into the yard. It was still snowing, but I could see Giselle crouched in the middle of the street, like a small blob of shadow, one with amber-colored eyes. I wasted 10 seconds calling her. Why do I call cats? Then clomped through my yard into the street. Normally this wouldn't be a problem, as I live at the end of the block and it's a quiet street. However, in the snow on icy roads, the driver didn't see me in time. When he did the absolute worst thing. Slammed on his brakes. That pretty much sealed my doom. Dying doesn't hurt. I know that sounds like a crock, some touchy-feely nonsense meant to make people feel better about biting the big one. But the fact is, your body is so traumatized by what's happening, it shuts down your nerve endings. Not only did dying not hurt, I didn't even feel the cold. And it was only 10 degrees that night. I handled it badly, I admit. When I saw he was going to plow into me, I froze like a deer in headlights. A big, dumb, blonde deer who had just paid for touch-up highlights. I couldn't move, not even to save my life. Giselle certainly could. The ungrateful little wretch scampered right the hell out of there. Me? I went flying. The car hit me at 40 miles an hour, which was survivable, and knocked me into a tree, which was not. It didn't hurt, as I said, but there was tremendous pressure all over my body. I heard things break. I heard my own skull shatter. It sounded like someone was chewing ice in my ear. I felt myself bleed, felt liquid pouring from everywhere. I felt my bladder let go involuntarily for the first time in 26 years. In the dark, my blood on the snow looked black. The last thing I saw was Giselle sitting on my porch, waiting for me to let her in. The last thing I heard was the driver screaming for help. Well, not the last, but you know what I mean. Chapter 2. Being dead really makes you think. Mostly, it makes you think about all the stuff you screwed up, or didn't do. It's not that I had this tremendously exciting life or anything, but, geez, I would have liked to have lived more than a measly 30 years. And when I thought of the way I wasted the last year, the last 10 years, ugh. I was never a genius. Strictly C+ average, which was just fine. Who could worry about geometry and civics and chemistry when I had to work on my talent number for the Miss Burnsville pageant? Not to mention keeping 3 or 4 fellas on the hook without them realizing they were on the hook. Sometimes I was exhausted by lunchtime. Anyway, I tolerated high school, hated college, just like high school, only with ashtrays and beer kegs. Flunked out, modeled for a bit, got bored with that. People never believed me when I told them modeling was about as interesting as watching dust bunnies. But it was true. The money was okay, but that was the only good thing about it. Modeling, contrary to the idea projected by the media, wasn't the least bit glamorous. You spend your days going to cattle calls with your portfolio tucked under one arm and a desperate smile on your pretty face. You get maybe one job.